Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us today as we talk about scammers and scams. And unfortunately, this is now just a part of our normal modern lives. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter whether you're on the internet or not on the internet. Really, we still have a digital footprint. And so we're going to deal with this. And within your organizations, most of us have email as well. And so that's a big problem. The issue is that scammers are out there, and scammers are nothing new. We know this. We've seen them for years in the past, but they are still going on, and it's still very prolific. And especially as we start reaching towards the end of the year here, where we hit the holidays and all the shopping goes on and the things like that happen, this gets worse and worse with respect to the scammers and scams. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Just to give you a little bit of background, who am I? My name is Eric Krohn. I work for KnowBe4. We do the security awareness training and simulated phishing platform for y'all. And I have been in IT and security since a long time ago. All of this gray hair, I promise you, is earned. Started off in the mid 1990s, back when we were talking modems and America Online and all that, and worked in a lot of different fields throughout the years. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in manufacturing. I spent about 10 years as a contractor with the U.S. Army, where I ended up the security manager for the Second Regional Cyber Center, Western Hemisphere. So we handled a lot of the network stuff for all of North America for the Army post camps and stations. Saw a lot of very interesting things in my time as a security manager and security person within that organization, if you can imagine. But now I get to kind of share what I see, what I hear, all of the different things that are going on in cybersecurity. And I do a lot of media ops. I'm in the media quite a bit. But now I want to take a little bit of time to help you understand some of the things that are going on out there so you can help keep yourself a bit more safe and secure, and so that we understand what it is we're facing. So again, KnowBe4 is where I work. You have probably seen some of the simulated phishing attacks or some of the training from us. We really, really want to help people stay safe and secure. And unfortunately, we're battling some people that are very good at what they do. These cyber criminals and bad actors, as we call them, or adversaries. These folks are very, very good at what they do. And as I kind of mentioned before, it doesn't matter who we are. We have a digital footprint, so we are a target. So let's keep that in mind. Now, what we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about the problems we face, like where it kind of comes from, so you understand why it's not so easy sometimes just to say, hey, we're going to stop bad things from happening. Your security team is working hard. Unfortunately, the attackers are working just as hard. And so we play this cat and mouse game where sometimes we get ahead and then they catch up. But these are the problems we face. Okay, we're going to talk about the types of scams that are out there. And I'm going to show you a bunch of examples so you can just kind of understand them. Not going to go deep dive on any of these, but I want you to understand what you're looking for so it's easier for you to be able to spot them. And then we're going to talk about how we can defend ourselves and our organizations as well. So let's talk about the problems we face. So the main one is thieves are everywhere now, and we just can't see it. So these bad actors, these are digital thieves, essentially. They're running a lot of the same cons that they used to use, going back literally hundreds of years. So we've heard of the Nigerian prince scam. That's a really common one that we hear, where somebody says, hey, I need to get a bunch of money out of my country, okay? That actually came from the old days of paper mail, where people would print these things up and send them around, lick stamps. These con artists would send them that way. And even before that, there were some scams that was based on, called the Spanish prisoner scam. And there's all kinds of things. If you want to read about it, it's fascinating how far these go back. But they've basically taken these and they've made these into something that is now digital in nature. So what they've done is they've had a lot of time to figure out how these things work, how people react to them. And that's an important piece here, is our emotions and how we react to them. And they've pretty much perfected their game here. And now, when I say that nobody's too small to be a target and we all have a digital trail, I mean that. Even if you have a flip phone at home and that's what you use to communicate with, you still have a digital trail. And it's through other organizations a lot of times. For example, within your county or city, you have a digital footprint. If you go and look up property records, your name and address and things that are associated with that are online in all of these places, even though you don't have accounts there. These are prime sources for attackers to look to find people to target. Also, marketers, anything you've ever signed up for. What happens sometimes is these databases that contain your information, they get breached at another company. An organization gets breached by these cyber criminals, and now they have you on a list. So don't think just because you don't do things on Facebook or anything like that, that doesn't mean you're not a target, because unfortunately you still are. And the way these things are automated these days and the tools that they use, they're not working hard at all to go through these lists and start sending out attacks via text message or phone calls or emails. It doesn't really matter. It's all automated these days. So you're just a name in there, unfortunately, but you're a name that's being targeted. Now, one of the key problems with the internet is we don't really know what's going on in the back end of it. Now, the internet is a really cool thing, and it was designed for what's called resilience. In other words, if a portion of the internet goes down, if a major hub or node goes down, the data will redirect itself so that it can still get around. It's very rare that we have a major internet outage that affects, most of the internet. We've had a couple that were pockets of areas over here or there. The problem is it was never designed to be secure. Instead, it was designed to be robust. So what that means is, even though you may log into websites and things like that, you don't really log into the internet anymore. And even when you did, there's no way to prove who you are. I can make an account anywhere and say I'm whoever I want to be. Nobody ever asks for any identification, nothing like that. And we go on with our day. Well, cyber criminals, they exploit that because we don't know who they are, and they can pretend to be whoever they want to be. This happens a lot in romance scams, in these business scams where they say that I'm an executive, and we'll see examples of that. They pretend to be other people, and it's really hard if you're not looking to sort that out. Now, the other thing that we got going on the internet is, of course, we have all of these different websites that we go to. Most of us, or a lot of us, have Amazon accounts, or we have a Netflix account, or we have all of these different accounts. And it's gotten to the point that most people have so many accounts, it's really hard to keep track of them. So what happens? You start reusing your password one at a time in the same places, right? So you use the same password over multiple sites. And it's even worse when sometimes it makes you make an 8-character complex password and all that. So you only come up with one and just reuse it. But that's a huge problem. Criminals use this against us. It's called password reuse. And they've developed ways to do it. Now, as far as an organization goes, once an attacker has your username and password, all of this money we send on a budget for cybersecurity kind of goes out the window in a lot of ways, because once you've said this is who I am and you essentially prove that you are who you are, you need to be able to do your work within the organization or within the network. And unfortunately, if they get a hold of that and they can fake it, well, that becomes a problem, because a lot of our security controls can't spot what's going on when you're doing your normal daily work. We trust you once you're in the front door. So that's why it's so important to stay on top of your credentials, your username and your password. And they use a couple of interesting little techniques here. And they do this because, let's say, for example, I'm on a knitting forum. And the knitting forum is run by a couple of people, nothing major. They're not IT experts. They're great at knitting. And So I sign up with an account there. I do my thing. Well, that forum gets breached because it's not a high security forum. These bad actors, they go in there and they steal the usernames and passwords out of there. Well, what value is that? Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to turn around and they're going to do something called credential stuffing. And that's where they take a known username and password and they're going to try it at all the major banks. They're going to try it in major retailers like Amazon. They're going to try it in email places as well to try to see if you reuse those credentials somewhere. And unfortunately, it happens a lot where that becomes it becomes very useful. In other words, they get into a lot of things that way. And that's called credential stuffing. Now, not only do they steal them from sites like this, but they'll send you emails that get you to go to a place where you think you're logging in to, say, Amazon or your bank or Microsoft or Google, but it's actually a fake website that you put your username and password in, and they steal your username and password that way. That's the other way that they get a hold of these credentials. Now, another attack that they do is called password spraying. And that's where they take like your email address or your username that they know, and they start using these passwords off a list that's published every year. It's the most common passwords. And it's always things like 1234567 It's QWERTY across the top of the keyboard. There are really common ones that are used by a lot of people. So they take your username, they try a bunch of those. Remember, these are automated tools. They're not actually typing them in, but they try these things over and over again. And that's also remarkably effective because a lot of times we don't take good care of our passwords. This is why they're so important. And to give you an idea, just recently there was a website that suffered this, about 200,000 accounts hacked. For North Face, the outdoor supplier. They do the jackets and all that kind of cool stuff. 194,905 accounts taken over on that website through credential stuffing, what I just talked about, where they take a username and password that they already have and start trying to log in. So they get into these accounts, it has an associated credit card, and they place orders to ship all over the place. You can see how this actually works in the real world. I see this and hear about it all the time, which is why I'm so passionate about the password issue, which unfortunately leads to a lot of things. Now, most of these phishing emails or the text messages you get, they're based on something called social engineering. And that's essentially where we take who we are as humans and we use it against ourselves or we use it against each other. And that means that the way that we act in certain situations is exploited. So, for example, if you have a building that has two outside doors, a lot of times in places with inclement weather, you see this. The outside door tends to be open. The inside door, if it's going to be protected with a badge, is the one that you have the badge that you scan to go in. And the idea is you get in out of the cold, out of the rain, out of the snow, then you can go scan your badge. Well, as a social engineer, if I time it to where the person comes to that outside door and I hold the door open for them, they go in, I follow them. Now, even if I just have a badge that I say pulled a picture up off of the internet and printed it, it doesn't work in the system. But if I can show them a badge, they're very likely to scan their own badge and hold the door open for me because we feel the need to reciprocate. In other words, I held a door for them. So now they go in first, they scan the badge, they even up with me, I suppose, by holding the door for me. It's remarkably effective. It's just how we're wired. It's what we do. But these kinds of things that are human nature are what these attackers use for us. We as humans have what we call vulnerabilities. And that means things that these attackers can exploit, and they can figure them out fairly quickly. If they get you on the phone and talk to you just a little bit, they can try to be aggressive and see how you react to that, whether you take on a passive role or you become aggressive back. And either of those can be exploited, but that's the two most common ways that somebody responds to that. Now, what the social engineers are trying to do is they're trying to change our action. They're trying to influence what it is we do. For example, holding a door open for me so I can get in without a badge that works in the system. But that's what they want to do, create a knee-jerk reaction that effectively bypasses critical thinking. Um, this is important because most of these attacks, whether they're emails or phone calls or text messages, they create a sense of strong emotion. And generally speaking, when we're in a strong emotional state, our decision making capabilities are impaired. So they get us emotional and they give us a direction to go, and we tend to follow it. I know that sounds crazy, but this really, really works. And this is why these things are so effective. We see billions of dollars being lost every year in cybercrime through scams, through things like that. I mean, large amounts of money in companies you wouldn't believe, for individuals. I just bought some property in Florida, and when I went through the process, I had to wire transfer money for the payment for the property. And I got to tell you, I've seen and heard so many stories of people, the attackers get into an email account, they read the emails, they know when this is about to happen, and at the last minute they say, "Oh, I need you to send it to this account instead." And the people wire 70 or $80,000 in a down payment to the scammers who were pretending to be the title company, for example. This has happened over and over again for individuals, and it happens for organizations as well. Now, how they find you out there, I told you earlier that regardless of who we are, we all have a digital footprint. And well, that's called OSINT. They use a technique called OSINT, which is open source intelligence, to find people, to make these lists. And this is stuff that's not out on the dark web. This is stuff, like I mentioned, like your county recorder's office, like all of these other places that have information about you that's out there, that's public. Believe it or not, there is a lot of it out there that they can take advantage of. So they will look into this. They will find this information. Let's say, for example, on social media, you do a lot of things with animals. They may know, okay, so this person is somebody who works with animals a lot. We're going to send them the text messages or the emails that basically are there to help us with the Humane Society. We need some donations for this. We need you to send some money for this. And they will run scams like that, based on the things that they can see on social media, on all kinds of other places. If you've ever making large donations to somewhere, a lot of times that shows up in tax records as well. So that's what I'm saying. Now, OSINT is not bad. It's something we use when we look for a new job. We're going to research that organization. We're going to go to Glassdoor. We're going to go to, all of these different places to see if this company is really what it seems like it is. They're doing that on you. Now, the way these are tied together, like I said, is they will use this to find your political affiliations, where you live physically. They may even be able to find family members, or you may be a family member of somebody else that they found. So they may be able to find someone else. You're connected to them one way or another, and now you're on their target list. So they come up with a pretext, which is a story. Like I mentioned, if you do a lot with animals, it could be Humane Society. It could be a lot of different things like that. If you're very political, that could be a strong one too. I've even seen it where somebody's school has been used, where they've turned around and they've said, "Hey, this is so-and-so from the Alumni Association at your college. We would love for you to be a part of this." And they open up the conversation like that because they know what college this person graduated from. And people tend to be proud of the college they graduated from. And next thing you know, they're falling into these other kinds of scams. This is how they do it. This is how they open the door to connect. Now, I'm going to show you some scams here. We're going to go through some of these. A lot of these are very generic, and most of these came right out of my own inbox. I've been, watching these for a while. But these are some of the really common ones I see. So we're going to go through these pretty quickly, though. This one is Cash App, and I see these a lot around the holidays. We've been trying to reach you to give you this $750 card. If you hover on that link, it does not go to Cash App. This is a scam. This is always a scam. And I love what they do here, where in the subject, they say this message was sent from a trusted sender. Well, hey, if it says it right in the message, obviously they're trusted, right? Well, these are the games that they play with you there. They're going to get you to click on that. They're going to get you to give up information, maybe to verify an account. They use these to steal your information. Likewise, you see things like this all the time, a free $500 Amazon gift card. Now, not every single one of them is a scam, but understand something. When you give them your email address there, are you expected that you won that $500? And the answer is most of the time no. So if they never have $500 to give away, do you actually know that? Not at all. They've just gathered your email address. Now they can target you with other things. Well, look, you were interested in an Amazon gift card. Well, that means you probably have an Amazon account, which means they can target things to that email address from Amazon. And chances are they're going to get a reaction from you more so than if you didn't have an Amazon. You see how easy it is to figure this kind of stuff out just based on the things that you may react to. So they'll steal this, they'll use it themselves, they'll sell it to marketers. They do all kinds of stuff with this. So be careful with these. If it looks like it's too good to be true and it's maybe not from a reputable place, be cautious. Make sure you know who it is you're giving information to. Now, likewise, this was one that was supposed to be from Lowe's, and it wasn't from Lowe's, but it's a $50 Lowe's reward, participation required. And you can see the email address is not from Lowe's there. But they're basically saying, tell us about your experience with Lowe's. They're also saying over 5 million in rewards claimed so far. Well, clearly it's true because it's in the message again, right? So this is trying to legitimize it. What they're going to do when you start this survey is they're going to start collecting information about you. And even if you don't finish the survey, if you finally go, this is asking a lot of personal things, I'm not going to go anymore. They've captured everything from that point or to that point. Anytime that you've moved on to a new page, it has captured all of that information. Be careful with these things. Watch these surveys. You're not going to get $50. At the end, a lot of times I see where it just basically fails. And who do you go complain to? There's nobody to complain to. It's not really from Lowe's, but they're making it think that way. And because Lowe's is such a large store and corporate entity, there's a good chance that when they send these out to all of these people, sometimes thousands at a time, that some of those people had recently been into Lowe's. So it kind of aligns with what they've done. This is how these sneaky things work. Now, this is an extortion scam, which we do see a lot. This was based on something called Pegasus. And if you Googled Pegasus phone virus, you would find that this is actually a real thing. It was run by a group of Israeli cyber folks, and it's basically spyware for governments, for nation states to keep an eye on folks. And it's been misused, but it made the newspapers. So what did they do? They turned around and they just started sending this to people. This came to my inbox. Said, you've heard about this, you become a collateral victim. Basically, it's saying that I can spy on every aspect of your life. That's what I did. I'm a black hat hacker. I do this for a living. You're my victim. Please read on. Now they want you to pay to not take all of this information that they got from your phone and dump it out on the internet. Now, the fact is, again, if you Google Pegasus phone malware, you're going to find that there's something out there. These folks do not have that, but they're using that fear tactic to get you to do it. And a lot of people fall for this. A lot of people do. It's scary. I've seen a lot of things like this happen where people think that there's something bad going on when really it's just a blanket thing that goes out there. It's not real most of the time. But you see the little tricks they use by using something that is a legitimate piece of software that has some pretty nasty capabilities. So the other one we see all the time, and we're going to see this more and more and more around the holidays, is stuff dealing with package delivery, whether it's Amazon or FedEx or UPS or USPS. We see it all the time where you get this message that basically says, hey, your package has been delayed. Well, they'll use it for a couple of things. And that's the thing. They'll use these same templates to do a couple of things based on what they want to accomplish. So you click that link, it may take you to a website where you need to confirm your identity. And sometimes they get people putting in their social security numbers, all kinds of crazy stuff to validate their their information, who they are, their authenticity. These are fake when this happens. Sometimes they'll have you open a document that's a shipping manifest that has a virus attached to the document. It's a different way to use the same email to do different things. Be very, very cautious. Now, in this case, if you look at it, it says it's from FedEx, but the email address is test1@merchminer.com, not FedEx. A lot of times you can see through these by seeing who they actually came from. If you have an issue with a delivery, you probably have a tracking number for where you purchased it. Go to that website directly, go to FedEx and put in that tracking number. It'll tell you if there's a problem. Same with USPS, or like with Amazon, you can just go to your orders pages. You can see other ways to do this. Don't follow emails that have this kind of stuff going on, okay? Now, business email compromise is another thing. This doesn't generally have attachments. It's low volume, but very targeted. This is where they really use OSINT on people. It's also known as CEO fraud in other places. And it's not that they're trying to defraud the CEO, but what they try to do is they try to use someone in authority, their name, their persona, to get a person to do something. And this, in 2020, the FBI said there was over $1.8 billion in losses to this kind of attack. Now, there's generally no links in this a lot of times. There's no attachments. They can a lot of times be like that. And when you see this, you may recognize some of this, right? So here's a BEC attack, a wire transfer fraud attack. And the way this works is, if you read from the bottom to the top, it's somebody pretending to be an executive. And they start off with saying, "Are you in the office?" And so it's the CEO talking to the COO. And when they do this, they say, "Are you in the office?" The COO replies and says, "Yes." CEO says, "I need a payment processed," et cetera, et cetera. And this kind of drives that thing, okay? Now, you'll notice up there that the email address is an earthlink.net. And generally speaking, these kinds of transactions don't have that. But the attackers, if let's say that COO pushes back on them and says, "Hey, you know what? This isn't coming from your regular email address," they'll have a story. They'll say, "Oh, I can't log into it. IT's working on it. I had to send this because it's critical and had to send it from my regular email." They know how to deal with this, okay? But this is an example of that. I've also seen it where it starts off very simply and says, "Did you get my previous message?" And the person on the receiving end looks at this. It's supposed to be from the CEO or an executive. They look through their emails. They don't see anything. And they say, "I'm sorry, sir, ma'am, I don't see your earlier message." And to that, the executive responds, they get very aggressive. And these attackers are waiting for this email chain to happen. So they get really, really aggressive. And they start in saying, "I sent you an email earlier. I said you needed to wire some money. We're making a purchase, or we're acquiring an organization." There's always a story behind it. But it's, "I needed you to send some money. I can't believe you messed this up. If you don't fix it right now, we're going to have an issue. I've got to go back in and tell them why it didn't happen. And in the meantime, you better get that money wired. Here's where you send it." That kind of stuff right there goes from a simple, "Hey, did you get my previous message?" to something that this person is fearing for losing their jobs. They're afraid of what's going to happen to them. And what happens? We do that knee-jerk reaction. They wire the money out real quick. And turns out it's not the CEO at all. Seen that happen. It's crazy how well these work when you're on the receiving end of that emotional upheaval, okay? Also, gift card scams. We see this all the time. If somebody is requesting, very cautious. Maybe pick up the phone and call them directly on a known good number, not one in the phone, in the email. But, "Hey, did you request this?" Because almost every time I do a talk in person, I ask some folks, "How many of you have seen a gift card scam?" And every single time, I can't think of a single time that there hasn't been at least a couple of people in the audience that have raised their hands that they've lost money to these scams. If anyone requests gift cards, be very, very cautious. They're also doing things like payroll redirection, where basically they pretend to be an executive. They may target HR or payroll, whoever in the organization does this. and they say, hey, something happened to my old account, had to close it, there was fraud, here's my new account number. I need to make sure my next paycheck goes to that. And they will generally try to time it. They'll try to figure out where there isn't a whole lot of time to do confirmations and stuff. Now, because it's an executive, a lot of times, the person on the other side doesn't want to say, sir, ma'am, go out to the portal and take care of it yourself, right? No, it's okay, sir, ma'am, I'm happy to do this for you. They want to make that person happy. Turns out it's not that person at all. And now your CEO's next paycheck goes to the scammers. This happens very often, believe it or not. And it's all done because people don't want to push back on those executives. And so be cautious with that. Weird requests, strange things like that. Follow your policies, follow your procedures. Now, tech support scams, I see all the time. I've seen this happen within organizations too. Even though they have an IT team, you'll get this thing, a text message or an email saying, you have a virus. We're here to help. Well, what they end up wanting you to do is download this little program, and they'll come in and they'll clear it for you. They'll clean it up for you. And you're going, oh, great, it's Microsoft. Thank you so much. Well, Microsoft does not do this. It's not a service they do. But what happens is you allow these attackers on your computer, either through something they say they're going to come help, or they sell you an antivirus or send you a file that's an antivirus. And what happens is now they get a backdoor to your computer, and they go in and they start stealing data or causing other problems. These tech support scams work very well because people are afraid of getting a virus. The problem is this is actually what spreads the virus a lot of times. So if you get one of these, especially on a work machine, make sure you let your IT department know. Sometimes people are afraid, like, oh, I must have gone to a website I'm not supposed to. I might have caused a problem. I don't want to get in trouble. And here they're offering you, again, a way out. This is your intended action. They get you worried. They offer you a way out by offering this service for free, and you think you're doing it good, but you're not. So always contact your IT department. If you get these at home, ignore them. They're not real. If the pop-up says you've got 3,000 viruses, it is not real, folks. I promise you that is not real. So how do we defend against it? Well, the first thing we got to do is understand, again, these are emotional. Remember, and I think I demonstrated that a little bit. If we get a phone call or a text message or an email, something along those lines, and it triggers a strong emotional response from us, I want you to remember to take a deep breath, step back. Even if you have to get up and take a couple of steps back and forth by your desk or whatever, and then come back and look at it, take that deep breath. And we need to learn that when we're put in a heightened emotional state, that needs to make us more curious about what's going on with this, not just following something so that we can fix the problem quickly. Because this is where they play us. They use greed, like that Nigerian prince scam. You go, oh, well, hey, I could make a whole lot of money here, right? And they draw you into this. They use curiosity. A lot of the ads we see out there, they're like top 10 things, so-and-so, number 5 will blow your mind. We've all seen ads like that, right? That's called clickbait. There's psychology behind it, actually. And it works very well for us, but it draws people in. They want to click on this thing. Well, some of these attackers have been known to do what's called malvertising, which is ads that when you click on it, it actually downloads viruses to your computer or malware. That's why it's malvertising. But they use clickbait to do that. So be very careful when you're clicking on things like that. Self-interest, obviously, things that are going to be beneficial to you, not necessarily on the greed side, but things that are going to be beneficial to you, help you out. They send you things that are going to be helpful. And one thing leads to another, and you fall for these scams. Urgency is in every scam I can think of that I've seen. I can't think of a single time I've seen a phishing email come in that says, hey, whenever you get around to it, you want to wire 100 grand somewhere, or, we may or may not be suspending your social security number. Take your time, call us at your leisure, and we'll chat about it. That's not how these things work. It's always, this is going to happen now. There's going to be a negative consequence for it. And that's, again, to get us emotional. And that's where the fear comes in, that negative consequence. And it can be fear of losing your job. It can be fear of your account having been hacked. How many of us have gotten a text message saying, this is your bank. We've approved this transaction of $6.53. If this wasn't you, click here and and validate it or stop the transaction. Well, they put a low number in there, and you go, I didn't buy anything for $6.50. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Somebody's in my account. That scares you. You click the link. You log into your account, which is giving the attackers your username and password. Voila, they now have access to your account. So they use that fear against you. But sometimes it's also fear of missing out. That's where the clickbait comes in, where you've got a little bit of information, you don't have it all, but you don't want to be that person that didn't know about this thing. So you use that too. There's lots of different ways that fear plays into this, but fear is a very strong emotional trigger. And then, of course, helpfulness too. Around the holiday time, we always see fake charities going up. We see stuff like that happens. Or when there's a natural or a man-made disaster, we see these same fake charities coming up, trying to get you to give up money or trying to get you to give up a lot of information through these charities as you try to help out. So keep that in mind. Strong emotional reaction to a text message, a phone call, or an email. Take a deep breath and look at it really critically, because they're trying to get you to take an action most of the time. That's not to say that there aren't emails and such that are going to give you, a strong emotional response that aren't scams, but most scams are going to be driven by this. Now, the other thing we need to do is protect those passwords. We have to protect our passwords. Now, I'm a big fan of something called password vaults, especially at home. LastPass, 1Password. There's one called KeePass. There's Bitwarden. And what these do is you basically have a tool that generates random passwords for you and then keeps them there where they're easy to find to plug into websites later. I don't know about you, but when it comes time to do a new password and a new account, I hate doing that. Or when they've changed it on you, they say you need a new one and you're like, oh man, I got to come up with a new password. So you sit there and you're trying to think of all the things that are going to make it work. Password managers, and a lot of them are free again, they will automatically generate a password for that, and then they'll store it in there. So you go back to that website, and a lot of them will say, do you want us to fill this in for you? And you say yes. And boom, it's done. Now, I can tell you, I use password managers myself. And under threat of death, I probably couldn't tell you what 2/3 of my passwords are. It's just a fact because I've never seen them. So this is a key way to keep from reusing passwords. Remember I talked about that before? Keep you from reusing passwords. Now you want to secure that very well. You want a passphrase, not just a password, but passphrases are things like, the squirrel is wearing purple shoes. And you throw in a couple of different characters in there that you can remember, special characters like an exclamation point or something. Those are key for protection here. They're long. They don't make sense. You can't just look it up in a dictionary, okay? And then you want to do multi-factor authentication. And on any accounts that you have, I highly recommend multi-factor authentication, whether it's social media or email accounts or bank accounts. These are where you log in and it sends you a code through a text message maybe that you have to put in. Or there's things on our smartphones like Google Authenticator or some apps that generate a new code every 60 seconds or so, a fairly random code that we then type in during that time. That gives us the second factor. It makes it a little bit more secure. It's not 100% secure, but it'll make a big difference, especially if the attackers just have your username and password and they put it in there. They don't log into your account at that point. You will get a message typically, or they'll be stopped because they have to have that code. So keep that in mind. Enable those, especially on social media accounts. I see social media accounts being taken over and used to scam family members and friends and out on Marketplace. I see it all the time. And the people who lose these accounts, it's typically because they have a very easy password or it's been reused and that was found in a breach. So keep that in mind. You don't want to be the person that's the source of scamming friends or family because someone took over your account and used that trust against you. So when it comes to email good ideas, best practices, don't open attachments, especially those that end in exe, scr, bat, com. Just be very, very careful with attachments. Don't unsubscribe to scam emails. You can make a filter to trash them, but if you click on that unsubscribe, they know that that's a live email account and they'll just put you on more stuff. That's how these things work. Don't click the linked things in there, like links that are in there. Be careful. Hover them first. Make sure that they're going where you think you are. If it says it's taking you to Microsoft and it's not going to Microsoft.com, be very careful or ignore it. Go straight to the website instead and log in there. Don't reply to these spammers and say, take me off your list. Because again, now they know that your account is active. They know that you're a real person. And for those that sell these lists, that made you more valuable because others are going to know that there's a body behind that is an actual active email account. So always check the from fields. Always be careful with attachments, no matter what. Don't enable macros or active content in Word documents. That's a huge way that viruses are spread. If you can, report suspicious emails to your help desk, if at all possible. And then understand how some of these websites work and know that Microsoft.com and support.microsoft.com, those are the same, but Microsoft.com and Microsoft.support.com are different websites. And I know that may sound a little confusing, but there's ways that you can Google it and find out ways to look at how to determine if a domain is legitimate or not. It's a great skill to have these days that can save you and your family a lot of trouble. So that's all I have for slides. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. I believe we're going to do some live Q&A here, but this is my contact information. If you ever want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, that's my email address. You can always reach out to me and I'm happy to talk about this. If you have something that's going on, a scam that you're concerned about, or a loved one has been part of a scam, I'm always, always, always happy to try to help out with that and see what I can do to assist. So thank you so much for listening to this. I hope you learned something from it. Stay safe.